Hello, my name is Mark Shipman, founder of Quante Carlo, an AI accelerator, and this is my investor presentation. As most people are beginning to learn by now, the output of language models can have quite a large amount of variation. This can have a huge impact on downstream task performance. So when we talk about tasks, we're talking about tasks such as classification, information extraction, intent, and sentiment detection. And these are machine learning tasks that are now using language models, sometimes entirely just a language model, or sometimes a language model in addition to other variables that are more traditional for machine learning. In addition to accuracy, better prompting has implications for governance to make sure that models say legal things, security, make sure that models don't give away information that they shouldn't be, and tone, making sure that models speak in a way that's preferable to customers. So it's not an overstatement to say that prompt engineering will be huge. So models themselves obviously are a big part of this equation, and then of course the corresponding platforms and hardware. But prompt engineering and the corresponding tools, studios, and platforms is set to be a massive part of the AI market, and it will be one of the primary ways that value is extracted from language models, image, audio, video, and also tool manipulation. Prompt optimization is a key skill in the prompt engineering toolkit. Prompt engineering itself is growing in popularity across organizations. Advanced prompt engineering is starting to grow. Things like fuse shot and chain of thought, tree of thought, those types of techniques are starting to become more common. Prompt optimization really includes any attempt to improve a prompt. Automated prompt optimization is a machine learning process in which you use labeled data to improve the prompt. So this diagram illustrates the process of creating a prompt, getting an answer, and then evaluating the quality of that answer on labeled training data, and then either generating or sampling a new prompt and then repeating that process iteratively to improve the prompt. In this way, prompt optimization can be used to improve prompts to have better performance on classification tasks such as sentiment detection or intent detection. This technique should be compared to a process that some of you may have heard or be familiar with known as fine-tuning. So fine-tuning is another process to do this, but it requires usually more intensive computation, and it's also more difficult to deploy. This process can be done entirely through prompting and reprompting, so that it requires no new modifications to a model. You do not need to deploy a separate model, which means you can perform agent orchestration with hundreds of models, hundreds of agents using just one model, but yet have many, many different prompts. So it's much more efficient. And sometimes it's actually even more accurate. In fact, frequently, there are separate studies on this, but frequently it is actually more accurate. It's more flexible, it can be changed more quickly. So in many ways, this process of prompt optimization is better than fine-tuning. They each have their pros and cons, and there are different situations where one might be more appropriate than the other. But the process of optimizing a model for a machine learning task using reprompting only has definite advantages. One of the key challenges is that it's very difficult to scale. So as you run this process for more and more prompts, that step on the bottom left, the process of creating a new prompt or selecting the new prompt to be evaluated becomes more intensive. And so that's a process that is actually organizations have a problem with, and so there's different ways they get around that. Usually it's some variation of a compromise, some approximation that makes the whole process, a little less efficient, but it is a computational challenge. Quante Carlo has developed proprietary technology that accelerates that step of the process by a factor of anywhere from 300 to 1,000%. So in one test, in a comparison to the second best technology, DS-Pi, Quante Carlo improved the overall process by a factor of 5. So this industry is very new and it's growing fast. A lot of the large companies in the AI space are offering prompt optimization tools and features for their platforms. There are a lot of new companies that are focusing on prompt engineering studios, prompt engineering platforms. A lot of smaller companies have entered this space. One thing I should say is none of these companies are really offering large-scale prompt optimization because it's an intensive process. So one of the organizations that's not on either of these lists is DSPy. That is a open source technology created by Stanford. So they're the ones who really pioneered the whole concept that I've described here about prompt optimization. However, as I said, they're open source. And if you use their technology, you will have all of the scaling challenges that I've described. That's why there's not really a product out there that does this, either at the B2C or the B2B level. So what that means is that all of these companies here actually, in addition to being competitors, are really potential customers. So what that means is there's an opportunity to partner with these companies and let them handle distribution, which would then mean customer acquisition costs would go way down. So it's important for me to mention why this technology is defensible. So one, it's the result of solving a 220-year-old problem, open problem in the field of probability and statistics. So most problems that have been open for long, people stop actually trying to solve them and then they work around them. And that's what I mean is most solutions or attempts to solve this problem are compromises that are inferior. Algorithms are usually open source. People expect them to be open source, so it's uncommon for an algorithm to be a marketplace advantage. But the bottom line is I know for a fact that Meta, for example, does not have this. I specifically talked to the director of the program at Meta whose job it was to work on this problem, and he asked me for my code. He specifically told me that they do not have this technology on CUDA, and CUDA is the platform from NVIDIA that allows the GPU platform to be used as a general computing platform. So I know that the competitors do not have this technology. So I've been working on this problem for a long time. I first started working on it in financial risk management. We were working on a computationally intensive process for simulation, and then I decided there needed to be a better way. And so after sort of solving the problem for that case, I started looking for other use cases. Power grid management, structural engineering, logistics, networking, cybersecurity. There's actually a lot of other use cases. I was recently introduced to the use cases in AI. There's been kind of an explosion. First hyperparameter tuning, and then also later prompt optimization. And I was introduced to the problem by the director at Meta for this who was working on this exact problem. Once I decided that the prompt optimization use case is the best first use case because it has the best path to market, we created several applications of this use case to actual business use cases in the insurance industry, and they are in production and they're being used by a major insurance company. So my goal for the next year is to get 5 more customers through a combination of marketing and direct sales, marketing mostly to include presenting at conferences, and then look for that one key partnership. And once there's a key partnership, that will change the number of users, setting Quante Carlo up for a seed round. And then once Quante Carlo hits the seed round, then that's going to change the focus on the platform and then also other potential use cases such as the hyperparameter tuning. And so that will actually open up another potential revenue stream. Again, it's still very early stage, but that changes the financials of the company to be a very high growth startup. The opportunity today is $250,000, and as I mentioned, part of that's going to go for sales, which would be SDRs just setting up demos, trying to get that 5 customers, and then part of that is also marketing, PR, some well-placed articles, but also attending conferences and presenting at conferences. And then I need to be able to support those customers, so I need some back-end infrastructure. I have over 25 years of experience in AI and machine learning. I started at Carnegie Mellon working with founders in the field such as Herb Simon and Tom Mitchell. I'm one founder with 100% equity and 0 expenses. I wanted to make sure that the product was able to have market traction before I started raising, making now the ideal time for a pre-seed investment. Thank you for watching.